Hello everyone, this is VGTI. Today's video is one I've been meaning to do for ages now, but just haven't had the time. You all knew it was coming. If anything in the gaming industry even mentions the word Pikmin, I'm there like a sad beggar groveling at the feet of Nintendo for more. I'm nearly 2 years too late to today's topic, but it's not like Pikmin 4 is anywhere to be seen anyway, so let's talk about Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Those of you who have been subscribed to me for a while know my history with Pikmin. It was the series that kicked off my channel after all. I've talked in the past about my frustration with Nintendo for the lack of a Pikmin 4 on Switch, and if you go even further back, I have a video discussing ideas for a Pikmin 4, back when, we had optimism for it. For that reason, I won't rehash all of that stuff. If you want to hear my thoughts on all of that, my videos are there. I will, however, reference some past theories I've presented for Pikmin, so keep that in mind. I've got a playlist for all of that if you need it. With that out of the way, let's chit-chat. Pikmin 3 Deluxe released near the end of 2020 for the Switch, serving as an updated and improved version of 2013's Pikmin 3. Also, that was 9 years ago. Let that sink in. I played and fully completed Deluxe last year. It was really good. I still have a lot of nostalgia for the Wii U version, and the Wii U in general, but Deluxe was a great way to bring Pikmin back in the spotlight it deserves, and the new additions were really entertaining. That's actually what I want to discuss in today's video. The new things in Deluxe, or rather, the implications they have. While it's just a seemingly harmless little remaster at first, taking a harder look at Deluxe answers some questions about the game's story, while adding several more. There are a lot of lingering mysteries here, and I want to figure out what they might mean. Let's get started. First, the big elephant in the room. There's a Piklopedia now. This feature alone is something I sorely missed in the original Pikmin 3, and the fact that Deluxe has one meant there'd be plenty more world building and insight into some of the game's enemies. As is the case in a majority of my Pikmin theories, this all leads back to the Plasm Wraith, and by extension the Water Wraith, Smoky Prog, and Gulix. In this video, from forever ago, I theorized that these four enemies are all the same creature, changing form from game to game as it evolves over time. There are several reasons why I believe this, and still do to this day, even more so. Things like the connection between the Prog's uprooting ability and Water Wraith's Pluckaphone drop, the Prog's Gold Pearl possibly explaining the hole in the Plasm Wraith, who is also made of a golden substance, stuff like that. As you would expect, I was incredibly excited to see what Olimar's Piklopedia notes on the Plasm Wraith would be. They read as follows. This unusual life form consists of an amorphous body around a hard cubic core. The body can shift not only into different shapes, but into different substances. It reminds me very much of the Water Wraith, and at first I wondered if it was also an ectoplasmic incarnation. However, enough others have seen and encountered it to dispel this theory. The creatures living near the Plasm Wraith must be formed from its gelatinous substance, since they all liquefy upon its death. It's not clear what purpose they serve for the Wraith. It's currently unknown what caused the hole in its torso, some sort of manifested psychic wound, but the search for this cause may lead us down the path to unraveling the history of evolution on this planet. So yeah, there's a lot to unravel here. First and foremost, these notes could be considered Nintendo's way of confirming that the Plasm Wraith and Water Wraith are connected. It's not quite clear how just yet, and even Olimar dismisses the idea that they're one and the same, though I think I know why. You see, in Pikmin 2, Olimar describes the Water Wraith as a possible manifestation of some sort of psychic phenomena. He describes sightings of the creature as full of extremely vague details, leading him to hypothesize the Water Wraith may simply be a natural phenomena, being mistaken for a living creature due to fear and exhaustion. He takes this a step further with this Plasm Wraith report, theorizing that because multiple others have witnessed the Plasm Wraith, it's not the same ectoplasmic incarnation as the Water Wraith. Keep in mind, however, that Olimar is one of the few people to have ever seen the Water Wraith. Olimar's idea doesn't hold much water when you consider the fact that no one else could have seen the Water Wraith outside of Olimar, Louis, and possibly the President. With that, the experiences in the submerged castle, the boss fight itself, and Louie's taste testing, I still feel these two beings are one and the same, and that the water wraith is an actual living being. The rest of Olimar's notes on the wraith are even more interesting, implying the hole we see to be some sort of psychic wound. Taking a brief pause from my primary Pikmin theory, this also backs up my alternative theory that the water wraith and Gygus from the Mother games are the same entity, seeing as how Ness had to use psychic attacks against the alien during their battle. What's most curious is the last part of the report, which implies the cause of the hole in the Plasm Wraith may help the team unravel the history of evolution on the Pikmin planet. That's a wild leap to make, but Nintendo putting it there seems to imply the Plasm Wraith, and potentially the other bosses by extension, hold some sort of key to the planet's mysteries of how life developed to what it is now. While I do stand by my old theory, it doesn't broadly examine how these beings formed, only that they're all the same creature, which just begs the question, where did the wraiths come from? I've always wondered this, and honestly, I have a sneaking suspicion it has something to do with humanity on PNF 404 and why they're all gone. I don't have any concrete points of evidence to explore that further, however, so let's move on for now. There was one other fun fact I discovered that's not specific to Pikmin 3 Deluxe, but does add more strength to my theory of the enemies being connected. Here's some footage of the arena where you fight the Plasm Wraith. Does the marking on the ground look familiar? As it turns out, we've seen a very similar marking in another place in the Pikmin series. The small land formations where the Smoky Prog's egg resides in the distant spring. The marking from 3 and the formation from 1 are way too similar to me to discount them as unrelated. And for one more spooky Plasm Wraith related fun fact, the Japanese name for the formidable oak, Tower of the Sorrowful Beast. That's the first half of the Pikmin 3 Deluxe mysteries I wanted to talk about, while this next half will concern the new side missions, specifically the missions called Olimar's Comeback. You see, when you finish Pikmin 3 Deluxe, you can play a series of 10 missions which see Olimar and Louie returning to PNF 404 after the ending of the game. Sure, the Copites did save them, but the president gives them a harsh scolding immediately upon returning to Hocotate for leaving behind the Hocotate ship. The poor duo is then sent back to PNF 404 to recover the ship and its parts. Sound familiar? There's one very important thing this side story reveals. Remember at the end of the original Pikmin 3, that post-credits scene that showed the Pikmin on the planet witnessing something crashing from the sky in the background? I theorized on this back in the day, unsure of what it could mean, or if it was hinting at a possible Pikmin 4 starting point. Nope. Deluxe finally gives us an answer to this scene. It's just Olimar and Louie returning. I have to admit, it's honestly refreshing Nintendo has gone out of their way to tie up loose ends like this. It gives us more room to focus on the mysteries that truly remain hanging here. And that leads me to some odd things I noticed throughout Olimar's comeback. For one, the planet's changed already. This isn't too surprising, as Olimar immediately returns to the planet after Pikmin 1, only to find all the areas he visited before completely shifted. Still, cool to see that consistency. PNF 404 still speeds through its environmental changes between trips to the planet. Where the weirdest mystery comes in is the final 2 days of Olimar's comeback. Olimar discovers a signal from the Kronos reactor ship part within the Formidable Oak, the same place the Copites found the Plasm Wraith and Olimar at the end of Pikmin 3. Olimar and Louie return here, which at first you might think is a bad idea considering how obsessed the Plasm Wraith was with Olimar in the first place. Despite this, the Plasm Wraith is nowhere to be seen in either of these levels. The fake enemies created by the Plasm Wraith are still hanging around, as seen when they're killed and dissolve into golden goo, just like before. There are even some golden-colored Baldy and Shaggy Longlegs as boss fights, potentially implying they too are Plasm Wraith incarnations. But no Plasm Wraith. The question is, where in the world did it go? We see at the end of Pikmin 3 that the Wraith is still alive and well, angrily waving at the ship as it flies away. Even after the team went to all that trouble of Pikmining it into submission, You would think that Olimar returning to its lair, that it would immediately try to capture him again, right? This could mean one of two things. One, the Plasm Wraith is either in a different area entirely, or two, it's resting somewhere hidden within the Formidable Oak, maybe asleep or recharging itself after its battle with the Kopites. I personally am leaning more towards the second explanation, as its enemy incarnations are still plentiful throughout the area. This leads me to believe the Wraith would need to be somewhere nearby, but we don't yet know if that's a requirement of its powers. It could also be that the Wraith was only interested in the Cosmic Drive Key, rather than Olimar specifically. If we're going with my connection theory, however, Olimar and this creature have quite a history. What's interesting is Olimar's note about this area before returning to it, in which he describes the Kronos reactor as being in a cave. This isn't just any cave, Olimar, it's the same cave the Wraith captured you and held you captive in. Despite this, Olimar makes no mention anywhere of his experiences, treating the Formidable Oak as just some random cave. Considering the Olimar notes we find before the Plasm Wraith fight, it seems as if after he lost consciousness, he also lost his memories of the encounter. This is further backed up by his Piklopedia entry on the Wraith, where once again he makes no mention of its odd behavior and playfulness towards him when he was held captive, or even being held captive at all. In the ending of 3, he does thank the Kopites for saving him, but it's vague enough to throw into question when exactly he lost his memories. This gives us some more insight into the Wraith's mysterious abilities. Considering Louis refused to go anywhere near the thing, it looks as if he either didn't tell Olimar what happened or simply had no knowledge of it. Though, it is Louis we're talking about. The last thing I want to discuss isn't related to Pikmin 3 Deluxe's mysteries, but rather a real-life scientific one. I was scrolling the news on my phone one day when I discovered that scientists performing an experiment very briefly managed to turn water into a metal. The result?
Air duct.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
Wait.
Everybody, calm down.
Thank you all so much for watching. What are your thoughts on Pikmin 3 Deluxe? Did you love its new additions? Did it serve as your introduction to Pikmin? While the mysteries present in Deluxe don't really add anything new towards Pikmin 4 hints, they do answer and add some questions for Pikmin as a whole. It also frames the end of the game in a new light, especially when one considers Olimar's comeback completely tosses away the alternate endings of 3 where Louis is left behind once again on the planet. Overall, I really enjoyed Deluxe, and I think it's definitely worth picking up if you haven't yet. Show Nintendo how much we love Pikmin, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get Pikmin 4 in another few decades. I appreciate you guys checking out my videos. I know this one wasn't a singular theory per se, but it's fun discussing a handful of bite-sized mysteries like these ones. If you enjoy my content and, I don't know, want to throw a few Pocos my way to pay off my debt to Hocotate Freight, I would be forever grateful. That's right, for those of you who don't know yet, I started a Patreon for the channel. It's no pressure at all, but if you feel like supporting me in more ways outside of watching my videos, consider helping me out on there. I've got some good rewards lined up if that's your thing. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Stay safe out there, guys. I know we're living in some historical times right now. I'll catch you on the next video, which, I'll be honest, I'm still debating on what to cover. Got a few ideas in mind though. Bye for now.